Hello and welcome to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. And I thought today, Arif, we might talk about real estate and technology. Actually, talking about the conducting of business and how it's changed, not just for real estate, but for your industry and for many industries, and how technology plays a role in that. And certainly within the past couple of years, that's been fast tracked because of the virus.
Yeah, Mike, and I think it's a great conversation to have. And I think it's also important that we make the distinction between this is not a conversation around how has migration impacted the real estate market because people can work from home. I think we've covered that and had that discussion more than once, and I'm sure it will come up again. This is actually how embracing technology and technological advancements have come to play, perhaps catalyzed by the virus. Absolutely. Yeah, Mike, it's a great conversation to have.
Yeah, and certainly, the best way to demonstrate it as we go on here is I'll probably flash back to some earlier days in real estate and do my best not to date myself, but just show myself as wise as experienced in doing so. But I don't know if I can do one without doing the other. But I think back when I started in 2000 in real estate, and one of the most valuable and sought after things a realtor would go after was we used to have duty shifts in our office where you'd take a 2 or 3 hour stretch of time and you were the agent that sat in the office and you waited for people to either walk in or phone in, and those people would be put over to you and you try to work with them and eventually turn them into clients. And that just doesn't happen anymore. Everything is conducted either by text, by phone, or by email. Most of the communications that happen within our business, which is far more efficient, it's far faster, and it's far more convenient. But it takes away a little bit of that personal element from conducting business, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I would hazard a guess that some of the wonderful things that people looked forward to, for example, when doing an open house or going to an open house, would be to see what creative concept did the realtor who is the showing agent, because it's not always the listing agent that does the showing of an open house, but did they have muffins that were sitting in the oven? Was there a waft of an apple pie, sitting on a counter? What kind of thing would they do different to make it feel like when you walk through the open house that it was gonna, I could imagine myself here and it seems like home. Some of that has gone away because of protocols required in order to be doing an open house today. But I do see some things coming back. That's my point. Not
more of the human touch coming back to things. It's like the pendulum swung. We've experimented, but then now we're finding that middle ground where there's a balance between what we can do electronically and with technology, but still maintain the essence or the most important elements of that human interaction.
Sure, Mike, I think that there are going to be some questions that we bring up and that will come up. I'll probably ask you some about predictions, et cetera. But certainly one thing I think is true. I think that there was originally a sentiment of certain things will never happen, ever. And we have proven that wrong, that they are happening. It's how. But one of the comments that you made about efficiency, that we've proven that we can be more efficient by using technology, I'm actually going to challenge it a little bit, because I think what ends up happening is that more from not necessarily philosophical, but just a fundamental standpoint, we used to have time in between meetings when we were commuting from one listing to the next, or one appointment to the listing in your industry, appointment in mine. If you're in the car, that you had some time to collect your thoughts, you had time
catch
to
your
go over
breath,
how that went, or you had time to prep yourself for the next meeting, et cetera. And certainly if there's one thing that sort of all of these electronic and video platforms have taught us, is that we're cramming more into the day, but we have less time to prep.
Yeah. So instead of leaving those gaps in, and when we said technology would give us more time, we imagine doing the same amount of business and the same amount of tasks over the course of a day. But perhaps having a little downtime in between, or just time to catch your breath.
Sure.
But instead, there's more and more tasks that we're doing. And
Mike, I'll certainly offer you this. The realtors, professional realtors and their associations, respective associations in Ontario, certainly across Canada, maybe across the world, has been far faster, far quicker to embrace technology than
Hmm.
many of the other sectors. The broker financial planning sector, certainly I would say, has been slower on the uptake, probably because we are somehow tied to, anchored by, if you will, the larger financial institutions that even in 2020 are using database systems and practices that were probably formulated and conceived in the 70s and 80s. And surprisingly, these mega multi-billion dollar, if not trillion dollar organizations or institutions have been much slower to adapt to embracing
Yeah.
technology. So,
Yeah.
but just
But it's moving in that direction. Yeah. But
absolutely.
here's something more philosophically. Here's we used to conduct business far more face to face. Our certainly our parents, our grandparents' generation, everything was face to face. Our social interactions were face to face. In fact, that our grandparents and great grandparents, they all went to church on Sunday. I mean, sure, there's a religious element to that, but that was their Facebook back in the day. That's how you found out what your neighbors and the people you knew, your sphere, what they were doing, what was going on in their world. Everybody got together on Sunday once a week and they learned what was going on. Now we do that electronically through, Facebook and Twitter, rather than pick up the phone or go and knock on somebody's door to interact with them. We send them a text message. So it's gone from real time to remotely, and it's not in real time anymore. I leave you a message, you read it when you have time or choose to read it, as opposed to someone showing up in your face. So a lot
Yeah.
of those things have probably changed the way we are socially with one another.
Absolutely. Well, and technology is a wonderful tool, and I think the long held debate that has been going on for a number of years and probably will continue to go on for a number of more years will be, how do you properly and effectively balance that embracing of technology with the human touch, the embracing of technology with the what people genuinely crave is ensuring that we make a connection. You
Yeah.
choose your butcher, you choose your mechanic, you choose your florist, you choose your childcare provider, you choose pretty much everybody that you interact with on an assumption that there's a base level of skill set. Now,
Yeah.
maybe if it's critical and life-saving in nature, you're maybe spending more time assessing and interviewing for that
I
skill
hope so.
set or that
Yes.
reputation. However, otherwise, there's almost an assumption that if you're licensed or if you have a shingle over your door, so to speak, that you're qualified to do the job. From there on in, it's, do I trust the person that I'm working with? Do I get along with? Do they understand me? Do they interpret me well? Do they take advantage of me or do they not, etc.? And these are all, I think, things that are relevant. It's based around the trust factor. It's based
Yeah.
around, who do I want to exchange with? So
Yeah.
when we take many of the face-to-face opportunities out of the equation, the question around who will be most successful and who will have a healthy business that thrives and continues to grow, or a healthy transaction, will be based on the person, I think, who finds that balance on how they're able to communicate themselves over a digital platform that may be really a one-way street of, hi, this is me and I'm telling you about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interested to figure out and to learn, how will networking evolve, or how will we ensure that that opportunity to build those trusting relationships continues?
Yeah, and there's risk of losing some of that nuance there with that, but there's also opportunity there, and I think in many regards technology is still in its infancy, and I think we're not utilizing it in the best possible ways. For example,
Not.
I think about. I mean, for me, I love the idea that I can send an email. I want some new information to go out to, 200 or 300 of my past clients. At the push of a button, I can send that to all of them. Imagine if I had to individually contact each one of them. That's efficiency. There's not as much of a personal element to it, but it's made up for by that efficiency. And if I want to do a podcast, so we're recording this show, it'll eventually go on to social media and that, so it'll live a life indefinitely where people can watch it on their own time when they're ready to see it. Whereas TV used to be completely live at one time. If you didn't watch the show, you missed it and it was gone. So, you know, the ability to archive things for people to access on their own time, I think is good. But another thing I'm thinking about is the seminar. I mean, prior to the pandemic, I used to go to a lot of seminars, and of course they stopped, and I missed them. But then I started to think about the product that was created to replace the seminar. It was already there, but it's utilized exclusively now, and that is online seminars. And you know, I never watch them in real time because I think, why do I have to tune in to hear this person talk to me for an hour? If the option's there to archive it, I'll do it every time. And then when I have the time, I can watch and listen in my own space. I don't have to get in the car. I don't have to drive across town or fly to another city to see this person speak. But I can pick up on everything they have to share with me. It's not the same, you know, experience.
I think, Mike, what you're getting into though is really relevant in terms of a know your client and know your audience, right? So
yeah,
in terms of somebody who's doing a transaction with a realtor or a lawyer or a broker, et cetera, maybe not so relevant, but certainly in terms of professional development and networking. And I think it's something that anybody who's employed in some fashion or another has sat through a training exercise or a team building exercise, et cetera. And really what it comes down to is that technology is a tool. For example, you could have a carpenter who uses a handheld screwdriver and another carpenter who's going to use a screw gun, and you know, that's efficiency. And that's also saving them their carpal tunnel or their repetitive strain injury, et cetera. So, however, knowing when to use the tool and knowing how to use the tool, I have a carpenter who will tell me that there are absolutely times that you want to put the gun down and you want to pick up the hand tool. So it really is about knowing how to use the tool, knowing when to use the tool. And I think if we can do something that's really going to be worthwhile in this show is really show our audience who may be involved in a home buying or home selling transaction, or maybe a mortgage refinance or something along the lines related transaction, how technology can be a tool, should be a tool. And those who embrace it and become masters at knowing how to use the tool will do so effectively without compromising the art form that should not be a lost art form of knowing how to still interact and communicate with people and meet them at their needs. We do have to go to a break. I think there's lots to discuss here, but let's keep doing it. When we come back from the break on Rogers TV, we'll discuss how we can use technology in the transaction and how you should embrace it and get used to falling in love with the idea that it'll make your life better. We'll be back with more on Hitting Home with Mike and Arif right after the break. Welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. And this week we're discussing technology and technology as a tool and knowing how and when to use it. And well, plain and simple, if anybody's been paying attention in the last 2 years with COVID, we recognize that there has been more of an embracing of technology. The question is, when's the right time to use it? Should we get used to it? Is it here to stay? And how best to use it? Mike, our industries are obviously within the similar field, the similar wheelhouse around real estate and transactions related to real estate. But I would suggest to you, as I mentioned in the last segment, that our specific professions within the industry certainly embraced the idea of technology at very different speeds. The financial industry was much slower. And there may be some reasons, there may be some justifications around that. Fraud is a big deal. Fraud is on the minds of, or should be on the minds of legislators, should be on the minds of regulators, should be on the minds of protecting consumer rights and protecting against things like mortgage fraud or impersonation, et cetera. And it's been around long before technology, certainly in the a creative accounting field, if you will, with those who falsely interact in transactions. So the question, though, became, and certainly at the forefront of our industry, why the financial industry and brokers and banks were slow to embrace technology was around the idea of ensuring that we never compromised getting to know your client. And,
Yes.
and certainly if you give people an inch, they take a mile in terms of embracing our duty and responsibility for consumer protection. So that's why there was some hesitation. I want to bring that up. I
Yeah.
certainly think that that we're well on our way to utilizing technology now.
Yeah. For a good example is the use of electronic signatures for
Right.
signing off on documents. And, both as a realtor, both as a mortgage broker, there's a lot of documents, there's a lot of signing off that is required. Our industry embraced that technology a little bit earlier than the mortgage industry and the banking industry has. And there was some trepidation there, and understandably so, for the reasons you pointed out. And but we've, in baby steps and increments, we're now more and more able to conduct a greater degree and maybe the complete transaction electronically and remotely.
Yeah. So let's understand something. I think it's fair to say fear was at the root of much of that hesitation. Fear of a few things. Well, one, this is how we've always done it is actually for some businesses and
Yeah.
industries a guiding principle.
Yeah.
I
It's
don't
always a
personally
pressure.
agree with it, but I would suggest to you that the banks are the biggest culprits of this is how we've done it mentality. Now, in fairness to them, I highly doubt that there's a bank executive watching this show who's upset with me and shaking his fist at the screen. However, the reality is this is how we've done it. It is slow to move and turn a large organization. Plus, imagine the amount of calculations and the amount of scanning in and digitizing and sort of modernization of their age-old infrastructure. I mean, that is not a simple undertaking whatsoever. However, I think in terms of how does this apply to our viewers, how does this apply to somebody getting involved in a transaction or looking at getting themselves involved in a transaction, I think what I'd like to do, Mike, is make a distinction that we're not, certainly not in this segment, having a conversation around do I anticipate dealing with a robo broker or a robo realtor from now forward, or what if I want to keep working with a human? I still think that we're definitely talking about face-to-face and human-to-human interactions utilizing technology as a matter of convenience and assistive tool for accuracy, if you will.
People want that guidance. People want that assurance. There are things that technology can do to enhance the ability of a realtor or a mortgage broker and create efficiency, but a computer, no algorithm, there's no, Siri or Alexa equivalent that's going to go in and negotiate on your behalf, who is going to provide care to their client, who is going to have insight and intuition when showing homes, knowing what could happen in that neighborhood, what direction that neighborhood is headed, I mean, when I take a client in to see a home, I'm not just trying to match them up with the check marks on what they want in that home. I'm trying to let them see that this home is going to be a good investment, because at some point they may want to sell, and I want them to buy a home that doesn't just meet those check marks, but that is also going to be a good investment for them at the other end. And that's worth tens of thousands of dollars to them, and you don't get that reassurance from algorithms in a computer, unfortunately.
Well, Mike, I think one of the greatest examples of intelligent use of technology has been certainly for people who might be purchasing from a distance, the ability to go in and do either a virtual tour or look at realtor.ca, for example, to see what the photos look like. Now, listen,
for sure,
any fantastic or any photographer with half a talent at editing can make the dingiest of rooms look presentable and beautiful. However, certainly it allows you and your potential client to shortlist and maybe work around work schedules and seek and explore from the comfort of their home when convenient, whatever those hours may be, and then shortlist with you and say, I've decided I'd like to actually go in person and look at houses 1, 2, and 3.
And when the pandemic came in and we were no longer able to physically show homes to clients for a while, Had that occurred at the beginning of my career, in the early 2000s, the industry would have been all but shut down. I mean, at that point, we were, dealing with flip phones, taking very, very low resolution photography. And it's what we did with that photography. It went into an ad in the newspaper, which is, a tiny little ad. You had no real sense of what that house was about other than the numbers and the address. Today, I can go in, and I do go in and take high resolution 4K video. I can do walkthroughs of that home, room by room, talking people through as if they're actually there. You can do like 3D renderings of the home that you can place yourself in the middle of, and you control, and you go from one floor to the other. And then endless amounts of high resolution photography that's there. All those things are a great tool, a great aid for that purchaser. There's so much they can learn before they ever step into that home, or in order to make the decision on whether or not they want to even go in and see that home.
Mike, I am no less. In fact, I am even more baffled and amazed by some of the creative writing genius of some of your colleagues and counterparts in the real estate industry, especially given the fact that there are now 4K resolution photos and videos of home tours. And yet some of the descriptions continue to blow my mind.
Well, at one point, was what we had to rely on our poetic license there to sell. Now the home speaks for itself. I mean, it's in those images.
It is in the images, but Mike, interestingly, don't sell yourself short. The home itself may speak to itself to a certain degree, but it is still the person, the real estate professional's ability to do what those images cannot do, which is like the emotional connection, the psychological connection, understanding the client journey, knowing the client's needs, not just selling them what's in the price point, but making sure not only do they get what they want, but they get what they need, and having some of those tough conversations. So I strongly encourage anybody who is wondering, what does the future of the real estate transaction, including financial transaction, hold? I will call it right now, timestamp this February 7th, 2022. Sorry for doing that to our producer, but here's the thing. We are a long way off, absolutely a long way off from technology replacing the expertise of the professional in the transaction. Anybody who thinks that they're going to fall for some of that amazing advertising out there by some of the financial institutions or brokerages out there that say get qualified in as simple as 1, 2, or 3 clicks has no concept of what's going on. It's not possible. That's great marketing, by the way. Don't get me wrong.
For sure.
That is fantastic marketing to hook a client into doing a transaction with them, but you are not getting approved in less than a minute.
No, but there's a lot of redundancy there, and again, back to the commentary that accompanies those images in a listing. You don't need to give a catalog list of items in the home that are quite readily apparent in the images that are there. And that's what a good number of realtors, that is precisely what they do with that. I like to talk about in those comments, or if you call me up, I'm talking about the things that aren't obvious to you from the photographs and the video. I'm talking about the neighborhood. I'm talking about the projects that are scheduled for that neighborhood in the future. I'm talking about your neighbors. I'm talking about, again, what direction that is. Is this an up and coming neighborhood? Is this a depreciating neighborhood? These are things that aren't revealed in photographs and video, and these are things that you rely on the realtor's intuition to learn. And hopefully the realtor has done their homework, or they're very well versed with the neighborhood that you're interested in and can share those things. That's the value in a realtor right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that similarly, I'll draw a comparison that, many of the people who are in the financial industry who are embracing technology, what they're referring to as AI, and to be honest with you, 99% of people don't understand what AI really is. Like, we think we know what it is, but what is it really doing? How intuitive is it? Listen, exceptional marketing and exceptional use of keywords and understanding what people are searching for, as more and more people are spending time on their mobile device or at home in front of the internet doing their research, which is exactly what they're supposed to do now. You don't need to call up a realtor and ask them 5,000 questions when some of that information, or much of that information, is readily available. Once the consumer educates themselves in general they can then get down to the finer details through engagement with making sure that you are the time that you are with your realtor or your financial professional, you're spending on the things that you couldn't have done on your own, and you really needed that face-to-face or that in-person style of communication.
Yeah.
However, that being said, I'll say this one more time. A lot of this technology is geared towards marketing, and the marketing and the one with the best marketing campaign and quite potentially the larger marketing budget is going to be the one who is dominating lead generation hooks, if you will, to get people to start the conversation. At the end of the day, though, let me caution you, the greatest marketing campaign in the world will never replace, when you finally do connect with that professional, can they actually close the transaction?
That's when negotiating skill, which is, I guess, a component of sales, comes into play.
So, Mike, we do have to go to break. Let's hold that.
We'll bring that back on that topic. I'd like to.
Yeah, when we come back, let's exactly do that. So we'll come back. We'll touch a little bit about marketing, but then let's actually go into using technology and or not using technology during the actual negotiation. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif, and we're talking about technology today and how technology is a big and a growing part of our industries and of many industries, and just talking about where it comes in. And before the break, we were talking about different areas, and certainly in my business, in our business of showing and selling real estate, the advances in technology for photography and videography certainly have enhanced our business and been a real bonus for buyers who want to go out there online and search homes without actually physically getting in the car and driving around and booking showings. So that's been a real help to the industry. But there are certain elements of the industry that I don't see that certainly require that personal touch, that require the realtor who has the knowledge, the experience, and care. You don't get care from an algorithm in a computer. And if you're a first-time buyer, or maybe it's been a while since you've purchased a home, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of reassurances that a realtor can provide that you're not going to get from your computer, and just intuition too. I mean, you need to read your client. What are their needs? What are their wants? You want to be able to, read them as you go, as you're working through that experience with your client. And at various points, you're going to realize, hey, I need to maybe steer you in this direction, or at least offer you the opportunity to go in this direction or that direction. These are all things where, that face-to-face interaction with your client are vital and will continue to be vital, I believe.
Yeah. So, Mike, I'm smiling because I had a number of images that go through my head as you were talking. One of the images that I recall is more of an image of somebody who drives their pickup truck into the lake and says, well, that's where the GPS told me to go. You still have to be a conscientious and conscious part of the equation yourself. Technology is designed to be an assistive device, a tool, perhaps taking manual processes and automating them, saving time, but not wasting time, saving time, but not cutting corners per se. And so
data management.
Beg your pardon?
Data management.
Data management, absolutely. So one of the other things that came to my mind was, though I certainly recall having sold more than one home and moved a few times in my life, knowing that, the beauty behind doing a virtual tour or some drone footage or something along the lines doesn't mean that you won't have to vacuum your way out of a carpeted area, or maybe, if you will, stage the home for an open house, but it might reduce the number of times that you have to do so for someone who might not be the well-qualified fit. So that non-qualified person, the person who's not necessarily a tire kicker, but doesn't know that your home isn't the right match for them, if they get an opportunity to look at the photos or see a virtual tour, they might decide to rule yours out. That's not a bad thing. That's actually a great thing, because
that's an efficiency.
Imagine having to stage your home for 20 different visits or every single day of the week and vacuum yourself out of that living room and put the plastic back on the furniture, so to speak.
Yeah. Or you could use technology and then therefore you would have a Roomba.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. Absolutely. But I mean, the point I hope that's being delivered is it's not to replace, it's to assist, and it's to be.
It is to assist. And I show far fewer homes to a client before we get to that sale today than I did 20 years ago. And it's precisely because people have so much more information before they ever book the appointment to see the home. So they can, and that's good. There's no sense taking someone through 20 homes to sell them one when you can take them through 4 or 3 to sell them one, because they've had good information up front. That saves everybody time.
I will throw another opportunity for discussing use of technology out there, and that is in the scenario of doing an inspection or an appraisal. Again, someone who brings in technology to scan the home for air leaks or heat loss, using the sort of that interesting display that has purple and red and yellow and all that kind of stuff that shows you where you're losing heat. That's not laziness. That's allowing you to not have someone to have to necessarily drill a hole or dig out a piece of your drywall, and then you have to patch it just to tell you that it was fine on the other side. Or it allows an appraiser or an inspector to not necessarily have to climb on the roof right away, saving you from potentially them falling off the roof and suing you. It happens. I'm not using extreme scenarios. It does happen. Attic inspections, etc. Utilizing technology can actually it's not only efficient but lead to better service.
You're now taking that hopefully experienced home inspector, and you're giving him a third sense or a sixth sense. Sorry, you're giving him X-ray vision to see those things. You're giving that moisture meter. He can read things that he can't see with his own eyes.
A plumber can do a well and septic. Sorry, not a plumber. Depends. The right technician can do a well and septic or a plumbing inspection before if they're snaking your line or something like that, to look at where the tree root is. So technology again is designed to help the professionals and you get accurate and better information to do their job in a timely manner.
Yeah, and as we started to go into just before the break, we got cut off, and that was talking about the aspect of negotiation. Now, there is no computer that can go in there. Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey was not the best negotiator. Computer technology just doesn't have those nuances and the finesse to negotiate. That's an emotional thing. That requires intuition. It's tact. All of those things you get with your realtor or your mortgage broker, who then is going to bat for you to get you that mortgage. And negotiation comes into play there, as you know. And I think those skills are even more pertinent and in the virtual element of sale. Going back to the day where you sat around a table and you negotiated back and forth. That required skill. I think there's a heightened level of skill required when you're doing that remotely, because you need the acumen to get your point across. You need to sell your offer to that other side. And that takes a good amount of skill, an increased amount of skill to do remotely. And again, you're not going to get that from a computer.
You're definitely not going to get that from a computer. And by the way, I did catch your movie reference. It's what are you doing, Dave? While Hal is locking down the entire ship. But truthfully, Mike, when you look at the financial industry, when you look at the brokerage industry, I'm going to be very blunt. Essentially speaking, asterisks.
Yeah.
Every single broker or financial institution has access to either the exact same product and service or very similar product and service. There are hundreds of lenders out there. Not every broker deals with all of them. Not every, and I will call it as I see it. if you're looking at the major financial institutions, they're not likely to sell you their competitor's product, even if it is better for you. So that in itself, though, isn't the rocket science. Let's go with, for the sake of argument, that we all have access to the same sort of portfolio of products and service offerings out there. What we don't have all is an equal level of acumen or understanding, because at the end of the day, it's not what can I sell you that's on the shelf that I'm going to make the most commission on, or that the bank wants me to push, or whatever it may be. If a broker or an agent is doing their job correctly, it is the skill and the art and the talent is in how well they get to know you, the borrower, the applicant, the buyer, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever position you find yourself in today, is are they selling you something that seems like it's assembly line, or are they taking the time to get to know you, even if they're not on the phone with, or not in person with you, but maybe on the phone or over a video call? It's how much care, Mike, you referred to the term care earlier, how much care and conscientious effort and energy and enthusiasm are they putting in to ensure that they understand who you are, not just where you are, but who you are, what is important to you. Why is it that if you put two people side by side with very similar scenarios, why they might recommend one product to one and a different product to another based on what your needs are, what's going on in your life, what's going on with your extended family, where might you see yourself in a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 5 years from now? How did you get to where you are? What's your history like? All of these things are going to be things that an algorithm itself, not yet, maybe in 100 years from now, but not yet, does an algorithm know to take the time and how to dissect that, rationalize it, and then present you with something that may be cheaper, maybe slightly more expensive, but either way is more suited for your scenario. And that's something, again, that no robo-bank is going to be able to do for you just yet.
And I would add to that, there's something you refine and you develop over the course of a career, and that is your relationship with your peers, people within your industry, within the complementary industries that you need to interact with during the course of a transaction, either as a mortgage broker or a realtor. That's the lawyers, the home inspectors, the other realtors out there, the mortgage companies, the banks. You develop a level of trust, and I don't want to say camaraderie, but at least just that congruency with those people. And that's of value when you're going to negotiate on behalf of your client, when you're going to present that offer, that comes into play more often than not. And again, a computer doesn't have the capacity to provide that.
No, it's so true. I mean, well, a computer will have the capacity to identify key points, especially when you program the computer properly. It will know to look for ratios. It'll probably spit out calculations faster than the human can do, even if I'm manually entering information into my system, or if I'm punching items on my calculator. A computer may be able to do those calculations faster. The question is, will the computer be able to understand the why and sort of the intangible things that justify why things are the way they are, as opposed to this is how they are? It's the why. And why any lender, certainly in the financial institutions, as well as in the insurance, mortgage default insurance, like the CMHCs of the world, they often want to know the story why, more so than the what, because we are judging, oddly enough, when you're being underwritten or adjudicated, qualified for your mortgage or your financing. It's not just the what that matters. It is the story that matters, because a lot of judgments are made based on, if I have the opportunity to give money, if I only have $1 and I have to choose who I'm giving that dollar to, and the data and the cold hard numbers are the same, the difference between who gets the money and who doesn't get the money is going to be based on the story. That is a reality, and there is still a highly human component to this.
And I can cite a perfect example of that played in our favor earlier, well, not this year, I guess 2021, last year, end of summer. And what you've just said is certainly more vital in our current environment, where there's multiple offers on homes. And we were we had put offers on 2 or 3 homes and lost out on. And on this third one, my speaking with the realtor and learning a little bit about the client selling, I knew that they needed some flexibility on a closing date, because they weren't certain they were going to be able to close at any one time. It could be earlier, could be later. So they were a little bit intimidated by offers coming through. So I made sure that we, in addition to that offer, we provided a cover letter from which personalized the offer. Here's my client. Here's what they're about. And here's their family. Here's their hopes and dreams. Here's what they love about your house. But most importantly, there's flexibility. If you need a little longer, sure, you can take that time. If you want to close shorter, they can accommodate that too. And what I learned, we won out on that. There was actually another offer that was a little bit more. They still went with ours because of the flexibility we built in by providing a cover letter. Now, that's something a computer's not going to have the foresight to do. The computer can put out the raw data for an offer, but they can't add the human element. They can't add the intuition and just that negotiation. Let's call it
Mike,
that.
we do have to go to break, and I think that's a great story. When we come back from the break, let's wrap this up with a bit of some sort of hypotheses or some opinions, if you will, on what the future of technology holds in the transaction. And certainly, I think what we've figured out over the last couple segments, it's that technology certainly has a place and will continue to have a place in the relationship and the transaction. But it's what the professionals choose to do with it, and what the homeowners, buyers, and sellers choose to do with that information. That's going to count. We got to go to break. Stick with us. I believe the saying used to be, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. Mike, technology is definitely here to stay, and that's my personal opinion. And if I was to summarize this, Mike, and some questions that I'd like to explore with you is if we're in agreement that technology can and should be and will be a useful tool in all transactions, if you think about it, how can we ensure that it essentially makes the transaction that much better, the experience for the users on all sides of the transactions? And some of the things, Mike, that were coming to mind as we were just on break were, well, we talked a little bit about personal relationship. We touched on organizational skills, or the ability to collect and have clean data, if you will. But some things that came up to me were, and I'm just going to look at my notes I wrote, the word accountability. How will technology allow us to ensure that there is a greater level of accountability, of accuracy, of time stamping, and the tracking of documentation? And why would that matter? And how does technology, Mike, allow you as a professional to focus on what you really need to focus on that the technology can't focus on? But
well, exactly,
right?
Yeah. To have the technology working in the background is great, and keeping you accountable, keeping a record of all the data points and your time, keeping you on track, keeping your schedule in place. There's so many things. And I mean, there was a time I started out in this business with a pager on, one belt clip, and on the other side, a Motorola flip phone the size of a milk carton, a briefcase full of 3 carbon copy offer and listing documents, all of that is gone. I mean, basically, this little tool here, if I can hold it up, just
no advertising there at all.
I did a little advertising for Apple. They're going to be sending me a check later. But it's amazing. If I jumped in the time machine and went back 25 years and tried to describe the phone technology that's coming, people would think I was crazy. But it is amazing what we're able to do. But all of this technology only makes what I do, I wouldn't say easier, just allows me to do it to a higher degree of efficiency, allows me to do it better, allows me to be a better realtor for my clients. And that's what it's all about in the end, I believe.
Yeah, no, and I think that is so true. From my perspective, there have been cases where I think everybody's gone through them, where people go into sort of a he said, she said, or I thought I did this, or I thought I did that. If there's one way that technology can help, it's with organization. It's with scanning tools,
Yeah.
optical character recognition, just organization and filing systems, transmitting documents safely and securely. Imagine this, right? We talked about earlier in the conversation around the concern around fraud. It used to be that you could, ask for documents and you weren't sure where those documents were coming from. Who was
Yeah.
the appraiser? There was no standard. Where's the tax document coming from? Where's the payroll document coming from? Job letters, because a buddy sets you up with a job letter or something like that. So technology has allowed for us to hold ourselves more accountable, to hold each other more accountable. It's allowed for technology to ensure that fraud is less prevalent. I keep bringing that up. The reality is, my friends, it does come up. It is a factor, right? So it allows us to make sure that we have, if you will, a chain of custody of the information. That is, where are we getting the information from? It's being submitted electronically. That electronic signature is a stamp of, if you will, license or credibility that is saying, I swear, hereby swear that this information is true. So I think it is important, because when people do skirt around the rules or look at how they can get creative with the rules, it does end up costing people considerably. You may not think it's costing you per se. It does, in terms of, we've all heard about it, automobile insurance rates and things like that. When people fudge things, they spread those costs out across the entire population. We're all paying for when people go around the rules, if you will.
Yeah, so it's a record and nothing slips through the cracks. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and suggest that real estate is probably the most personal business relationship, certainly within the world of buying and selling. I mean, it's certainly the largest transaction most are going to engage in. It's quite possibly the most emotional transaction that many are going to engage in. And for those reasons alone, I mean, having another human being who can identify and empathize with you and be by your side through that transaction. I know I'm going all poetic on this, but I think that is vital. And you certainly, again, are not going to get those human components and elements out of any type of computer. I don't care how advanced that computer is, it'll still always be a machine.
Yeah, Mike, I think, listen, I'm certainly not anti-technology. I embrace technology.
Oh, I'm a geek for technology.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the latest and greatest of everything all the time, but it's how can that help me serve you better? And I think that is really the key. So when I think from our perspective, again, I've said this before, you're not going to be answering 3 simple questions and clicking submit and get yourself approved. It's not happening. What is going to happen is you'll do 3 simple clicks. You'll be told that you've been approved, and then you actually have to go what you were going to do anyway if you were speaking to a human. So the reality, it's a lead generator, it's marketing, and it's a very successful and effective marketing tool. It's plants an emotional seed that says, the computer says that I've been approved. I'm going here and I'm going to stick with it. So in my personal opinion, those of us who are embracing or considering staying in the financial services and brokering and field, we better embrace that technology, because it is about how can you keep those leads coming in when there's so much competition out there. But it won't be as simple as automating. It's how can your marketing effort connect with the audience who's looking on an iPad at 11 o'clock at night because they can't sleep. And so it's about that engagement. So there still has to be personal touch. There still has to be the ability to resonate with an audience, know your niche, know your audience, but recognize as a consumer out there, if you're looking at getting a mortgage, if you're looking at who you want to work with, you better believe that the government and the regulators and those who are looking out for consumer protection are not going to be making it easier. They're not going to be letting slide the high standards to ensure consumer confidence and protection. They're not going to let that slide with a 3 simple click thing. You will have all of your documents vetted, and you will have, you still will want to be working with someone who can help you personally get to know you, get to know your story, go through your documentation with you, and ensure that you qualify appropriately.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. I don't believe that the general public is has any will or is in any hurry to replace you or I in what we do in our business with technology. And I can cite a perfect example of that is in the States over the last few years, there have been 3 or 4 brokerage models that have come forward that have tried to present themselves and market themselves as being virtual automated processes. You don't have to go through all the frustration of dealing with a realtor. You can, you can do it all electronically. And these models stick around for a year or two and then they're gone. So, I mean, that's people raising their hands to state whether or not they want to replace us with technology. And I got to say, I just ordering food through an automated system online, press 1 for this, press 2 for this. I'm totally frustrated 2 minutes into that call, whatever it is, whether it's calling whatever business. Can you imagine trying to go through the complexities of putting a mortgage together or conducting a real estate transaction using today's technology? And that's exactly what it would be. It would be those bots that were saying, press we choose this. If you want this, choose that. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Please repeat. And then
Yeah.
the menu starts again. You're ready to just, yeah, hang
Yeah,
up.
no, I think though one of the ways that we could wrap this up, Mike, though, is this. I think a recent study was done of those who are certainly, I don't want to say the millennial generation or which generation it may be, but those certainly currently who are entering into the marketplace, perhaps for the first time, have grown up with a more recent version of technology at their fingertips, whether it's an
Yeah.
iPad since birth, or game development and app development, et cetera, whether it's social media, et cetera. All of those things are relevant. They all do play into
Yeah.
what we're talking about on the show. But if I was to wrap it up, I would offer you this: is that those who are the greatest adopters of technology are the very ones who have said that I choose to use technology as an element of convenience or research or making sure that I am a smarter, more aware consumer. However, I still, even more so, more now than ever, want to ensure that I have a
Yeah.
relationship of
And I would,
trust with the human being
yeah.
in the interaction. We do
And
have
I
to go
would,
30 seconds to you, Mike.
yeah, I would call that, from the public's perspective, more of a curiosity than an appetite for technology with regards to what you and I do.
Absolutely. But if one thing is for sure, you will still want to make sure that you've got a great relationship with the professional that you're working with. I want to thank you for this conversation. I thought it was fun. I thought it's informative, inviting, and we'll see you again next time on Hitting Home with Mike and Arif.
Yeah. Press 1 to say goodbye.